I can always grab the door if it all starts going on.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, it is 1 p.m. on Monday, August 24th, 2026. This is a meeting of the Land Use Review Board. I am Janet Hurley, the chair, and I will ask board members to introduce themselves. Brooke.
Singleton, present.
Sarah.
Sarah Hyde, good afternoon.
Alex.
Alex Weinhagen. Hello, everyone.
And Kirsten.
Kirsten Sultan. Hi, everyone.
Okay, all 5 board members are present. And Brooke, I would ask you to identify at least one extern who looks like he is present.
This is Spencer Billings. He is a Vermont law and graduate school. Sorry, they changed the name since I attended there. And he is a rising 3L. He's a 3L because as of today, I guess the semester has begun. And so we are happy to have him present with us today. He's received some training this morning from our wonderful legal staff and our state coordinator, Aaron Brondike. So we are thrilled to have him aboard.
Thank you. Welcome. We are appreciative of your interest in our work and whatever help you can give us.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to get started.
Great. Do board members have any agenda updates? Here's not, so let me open it up now to any public comment on non-agenda items. Do we have any public present who wish to comment on non-agenda items? Is that Christian? Yeah, Christian.
Yep. Yeah, just real quick, I just want to clarify and make sure I'm getting this right. So there'll be an opportunity if we have some specific questions about, say, the draft comments, we can ask them during the agenda item.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Then
Yes.
no comment.
Okay. Thanks. Okay. No, any other public comments on non-agenda items? Okay. Then let's move on to minutes approvals. We have minutes from a very brief August 12th meeting to approve. Those were posted and they look good as drafted. And then we also have minutes from our August 18th meeting with some revisions proposed by both Brooke and myself. So shall we take them one by one? I would entertain a motion on the August 12th minutes. Kirsten?
I'll make a motion to approve the August 12th minutes as written.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you, Brooke. All those in favor of approving the August 12th minutes, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
And do we have an abstention, Alex?
Yes, abstaining as I
Okay.
wasn't present.
Okay, so that is unanimous from the board members who voted, so I don't think I have to do a roll call vote. And for August 18th, we posted a draft and a couple of board members provided some clarification edits. Do we have a motion on those minutes?
Yeah, I'll move to approve the August 18th minutes as revised.
Thank you, Alex.
I'll second.
Thank you, Brooke. Okay, all those in favor of approving the August 18th minutes, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
That is 5 ayes. That's all of us. So that is also unanimous. Those minutes are approved. So we have a brief item we need to discuss and act on some ARPA money that is unexpended and for which we finished our work. So I'm going to turn it over to Rachel for an explanation of this.
Sure. Thank you. For the record, Rachel Monaco, Business Director for the Land Use Review Board. Yes, years ago, the then Natural Resources Board was awarded funding for 2 projects, and this is American Rescue Plan Act or state and local fiscal recovery program money. And those 2 projects were as follows. The first was for a digitization effort to scan our land use permit records in 2 out of our 9 district offices. That work has been completed. And the second project was for hiring 3 limited service positions for a period of time. And those positions have been, those limited service positions have closed, and many of them have been converted into full-time permanent positions. So again, the ARPA project has been completed. As you know, I think the funding for American Rescue Plan Act money needs to be spent by the end of this fiscal year, so by 12/31/26. As we have completed both of our existing projects, we have come in under time and under budget on both projects. And there are unexpended funds kind of related to those projects that the board could vote to revert the existing funding to the Agency of Administration. I'll stop there and wait for questions from the board.
Or if there are no questions, I would entertain a motion to have that money revert back to the state for use before the end of the year. Sarah?
I would move that we report the Land Use Review Board's 2 American Rescue Plan Act state and local fiscal recovery funded ARPA/SLFRF projects as completed or closed, and notify Vermont Agency of Administration that remaining unspent funding is ready for reversion.
Thank you,
Second.
Sarah. I'm sorry, did that get seconded?
Yeah, that was me. Second.
Alex? Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing no need for discussion. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
And that is 5 ayes. That is unanimous. Thank you, Rachel. Sorry. Next on the agenda is the Central Vermont Regional Planning Commission pre-application response. We are devoting 2 hours to this. Might want to take a break somewhere in the middle there, but Kirsten, go ahead.
So as the board members know, I'm not assigned to this particular regional plan application, so I'm gonna step away from the meeting, but if someone would kindly alert me when you've concluded this agenda item, that would be great.
Okay, great, thanks. And Brooke, as our designated board member, I just want to ask you, would you like me to, or are you prepared to share screen while we discuss?
I can, but as you know, it's a little challenging to do with one screen operating off
Yeah.
of my laptop. So if you would be able to, that would be very helpful, I think.
I can, I have a copy that I have my own notes on that I would like to refer to. Is that okay?
Sure, I think that will be
Okay.
very useful.
Okay, so let me locate that and share screen. If somebody could help me keep an eye on the time, that would be helpful. So I think if we get around to 2 o'clock, we might just want to take a little break, see where we are at that point. But if you could all help me remember that when we get there. Are you seeing the document?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So this is a draft pre-application response for the Central Vermont Regional Plan. These first two comments, my comments are highlighted in this yellow color, are technical. I don't think they really warrant much discussion, but just that we need to have draft on more than just the first page, and that some of the citations in this paragraph are a little confusing, and we clarified this paragraph in the two previous pre-application responses, and I'm just suggesting that we correct this because the shell hasn't been updated to reflect those clarifications. So, and Brooke, would you like me to just scroll through and stop when people have questions?
Yeah, I think that would be helpful. Let me just note that, I don't know why when I put the watermark on, normally it appears on every single page, but for some reason it only appeared on the first page.
Yeah,
however, I did.
That's
put Vermont
because
in
of the way that watermarks work. You have to, if the first page header is different than the rest, you have to put it on the second page and manually add it to the first page. It's annoying, but yeah. So,
I learned something new today. But I would note that I did put it into the header on the subsequent pages. So at least it says it there, but if the board would like, we can add the watermark to every page, now that I know how to do it. You're muted.
sorry, I'm muted. If it comes back to the board next week, I think we should fix that. But if by some miracle, we finish this off today, we don't have to. So, would board members like me to just scroll through and just stop when somebody has a comment?
Maybe we could go to the first substantive comment, and if someone has something, before that, we can skip back.
Sure.
I think there was an advisory recommendation under goal 4. That may be the first one of some substance on page 4.
Yeah, is that what you're seeing here, Alex?
I'm following along on a version I have, but yes, the advisory recommendation about more information requested with regard to microtransit. So my question about that comment is, this is not my comment, so whoever put this forward maybe wants to speak to it. But my question was, do we have any sense that microtransit exists at all in this region? And if it, and therefore warrants more information or not?
I don't know. I don't know whose comment this is.
Sarah's
Christian, do you know, is there microtransit in the central region?
Yes, we have microtransit in Montpelier.
Okay, thank you. Does that satisfy you, Alex? For an advisory recommendation? Okay.
Makes sense if it exists in some form, as it is new and interesting. Sounds good. Happy to move on.
Yeah. Okay. So with goal 5 and actually several, I think I have a general comment that it appears that what we are saying is the plan does not it appears not to conform. And instead of unable to determine whether the draft appears to conform, because there are missing elements to the plan, the draft plan. So I think that some of these responses just need to be reworded to say, the plan, the draft regional plan appears not to conform. And this is one of those. And that is because there is information lacking on scenic, historic, and archaeological resources. There also appeared to be a lack of indication of sensitive, significant natural and areas and rare, threatened, and endangered species. So my comment here is that this should be appears not to conform rather than we just need more information, because the plan needs to have that information.
Yeah, I would agree. In defense of the way Brooke drafted it, I sometimes go back and forth between should
Yep.
it be appears not to or just needs more information. But I take your point, Jen. I think you're right that we ought to use the needs more information when the substance appears to be there, but we have some questions or we need clarifications to further suss it out, versus in this case where it just doesn't seem like some of the substance is actually there. And statutorily, it seems like it needs to be.
Yeah. And there's another general comment about the maps in the plan. Almost all the maps that are included in the appendix are from 2006 or 2007, I think. So the information in them is 19 years old, apparently. And I think a lot of the A&R identified resources have certainly been updated in that time. And I presume there have been some transportation infrastructure changes and maybe even other utilities and broadband access changes. So there's a note further down in the draft about this, but I think it's more substantive than the note further down in the draft suggests, and I think it should be identified more clearly as a requirement to get those maps updated.
Sure, and I think this is Brooke speaking. I think that A&R called that out as well, in their comments, which I did not yet have the opportunity to add our agency partners' comments necessarily in. Some of them overlap with ours, but that is something that I would like to make sure that we cover. And if I could just ask for the board to call out specifically every instance in terms of needing to say, we don't think that you have, passed the test versus insufficient information. I had the impression that it was like we were saying add more information, but I take your point in terms of saying that the content needs to be altered. So just
Right.
be sure so that I don't miss any of them.
Right.
Call them out as we're going through one by one, if you don't mind.
Okay. Yep, I will, Brooke. And just to clarify for anyone listening, this is for to say that it appears not to conform when the plan itself needs to be revised to produce that information, versus we need more information in order to make the determination, which is we need some auxiliary information or a little bit more information about the map, the map areas or something. That's when we are asking for additional information. But when the plan itself needs to be revised to provide that information, I think we need to say that it appears not to comply at this point. Okay, so I'm moving along. If anybody needs me to stop before I see something, let me know. Under goal 8, I think it's the same situation. It appears not to conform because there isn't information on recreational assets, or isn't sufficient information on recreational assets. according to the
I-
statutory.
I saw the proposed draft language and felt the same way that, Brooke was right to call it out. And, you're right, Janet, that we ought to switch our verbiage to say appears not to conform.
Yeah. Okay, and then on goal 10, same thing, the plan, I think, requires more information to address the earth and mineral resources, requirement of goal 10. Goal 11,
Oh, sorry, Janet, just to
Yeah, go
back you
ahead.
up a little bit on goal
Yeah.
10. On several other regional plans, we've noted, and I've made a particular point of noting that it's good to consider for the Regional Planning Commission to consider inserting language into the plan that recognizes, not just the importance of these mineral resources, but also how to ensure access to them over time. And then also, how to mitigate the potential impacts of utilization of those resources. And so, Brooke, you might consider, in terms of sussing out what information is insufficient, mentioning those two items.
Yeah, and I think I actually mentioned this to Brooke in my email that Alex, you had suggested this for almost all the pre-applications, that we provide some advisory guidance in that respect. Particularly about, you know, making sure that there is access to those resources in the future.
Yeah, I
Before
agree,
they're
Janet.
developed for other purposes, yeah.
We've done
So-
it as an advisory recommendation, so I think what we're saying in goal 10 is, doesn't appear to meet, needs to have some, more basic information as described in the draft here. And then what I'm saying is perhaps another advisory recommendation below that to address the
Yeah.
item that Janet was just saying that I mentioned.
Yeah. Okay, so goal 11 on housing. I think this is another one that I think what you're saying is I'm sorry. I don't think that this particular comment belongs under goal 11. I think it goes under the housing element. Because goal 11 doesn't really say anything about location of affordable housing. But what do you
I
all think?
agree. I agree, and I think in some other regional plan reviews, we've tried to consolidate with the more substantive comments under element 9, because the language in goal 11 is fairly broad, and I'm not convinced that the current plan language doesn't adequately address that language, but it's in element 9 where I think the details are a little more significant and cause for some revisions or what have you.
Yeah. And there is, as Brooke put here, a cross-reference to element 9. And I think it's a good idea to keep those cross-references so that when, something looks good on the goal side, but there may be comments on the element side, people can see that. Okay, moving on to goal 15. And I think here again, this is one where I think the plan does not appear to comply. And it's because the environmental benefits and burdens analysis is incomplete. The table in the appendix does not have the results of the analysis in it. So I think this wording needs to change to be the plan appears not to comply, the draft regional plan. So. Any discussion there?
I'm not as stuck on that one because it appeared to me that they were clearly intending to complete that. It's just in process.
Right.
At least that was the way I took the highlighting in the plan. I think that it's coming, but it's not there. So
Yeah.
we should mention
Well,
it.
it's not there
but
yet, so
yeah,
right
I'm
now it
happy
doesn't,
to
yeah.
happy to have it say, does, appears not to conform, but
Okay,
wouldn't be opposed to leaving it as insufficient information either.
okay. Okay, consistencies with the purpose looks okay. Member, participation or public participation, meaningful participation looks okay. Conformance with policies, basic statement of policies. Okay, and now we're looking into the elements. This is the natural resources and working lands element. This is highlighted, Brooke, and yeah, that was me. A&R pointed this out, that the mapping is from 2007, and that definitely needs to be updated. So I think we might want to change this to, it appears not to conform, so that we can encourage the regional commission to update the data that is shown on those maps.
Okay.
And then I had a comment here about moving the comment about river corridors not being shown to the flood resilience element, because it is a requirement that you show flood hazard and fluvial erosion hazards. The river corridor is essentially the fluvial erosion hazard areas that the Agency of Natural Resources has mapped. And so I think that this is a required element of the flood resilience element.
Yeah, I highlighted it because I didn't feel like it was in the right place, so I was trying to draw
Yeah.
our attention to it.
Okay. Energy,
So Janet,
There's
sorry
an-
to stop us here, but on element 2,
yes.
are we sure we want to say that it appears not to conform? I mean, I think the mapping does need updating, but I'm not convinced that the mapping has changed enough for us to determine that it's, no longer accurate. I think what we might want to
Okay.
say is that it's, make a comment about needing more information to determine whether it conforms, and that
Okay,
information could be new maps, or it could be some sort of explanation as to why the 20-year-old maps are still in fact accurate.
yeah, I'd go for that, Alex. Others agree with Alex there? Yeah, I see nods. Okay. Energy, there's an advisory recommendation here. I think my comment is that I'm not sure what it's asking for here. I guess it's asking for discussion of how the regional energy burden compares to that of the state as a whole. Is that correct? Yes, I see Sarah nodding. I think it just needs a little bit of rewording to be clearer as to what we're asking for.
Can I ask what that would be now or later?
So in a lot of plans, we've had an analysis by saying that 20% of certain area is energy burdened for home heating oil or something of that nature, and how it compares to the state and what's the state's average for energy burdened individuals. So I'm happy to have that phrased a bit better.
I just thought, consider including a discussion of how the regional energy burden compares to that of the state.
Yep, perfect.
Well, hold on. This conversation has helped me, because when I read this, I wasn't sure if we were talking about household energy burden or like renewable energy production within the region. So if it sounds like, Sarah, you meant household energy burden or burden, household cost, burden of energy on household costs or something like that. So I would encourage Brooke to put in something about what we mean when we say burden. And it sounds like it's household.
No, I was just giving that as a for instance. I didn't mean to, Joel, without I'd have to go back through my notes to see about a specific, but it
I mean,
was
there,
just,
there can be energy burdens on, local businesses too. So, and I think the energy plan can discuss that. So I guess I don't
We're
think we
talking
need
about
to
the
be too.
cost of energy? I'm still unclear as to what
Yeah,
energy
that's,
burden
yes,
means.
energy burden is the cost of energy relative to income.
And we have information on that at the state level to
Yes.
compare this region to?
Yes.
Okay,
we've seen this in other areas, where they've compared it just as, for instance, with housing, right? The housing burden is no more than 30% of your household budget should be going to the cost of housing, and, renters that are, burdened by housing versus homeowners. There's also a metric on, energy burdens that we've seen, deployed in a variety of different regional plans. I just felt like, there could be a little bit more robust conversation, and I think what Janet proposed was absolutely accurate and spot on. So I'd go with that rewording that Janet provided.
yeah, I remember it within the Northeastern Vermont Development Association's plan, but it was specific to households, I believe, not like non-residential uses and the burden that businesses might face in terms of energy cost. Because I don't think that's determined at the regional level.
It might not be, yeah.
That's determined by utilities that operate outside of a regional level. But in any case, yeah, sounds good.
Okay, transportation, looks like there needs to be some more information on prioritization of projects, transportation projects. And I think that's a requirement based on the statutory standard here that we have quoted, recommendations to meet the future needs with indications of priorities of need, costs, and method of financing. So I think this is another one where it appears not to conform. Any further discussion there? Okay. So this one I think is similar, though I did find that the utilities map did have broadband coverage on it. But again, it's 20-year-old data. So I don't know how you want to word this one. Maybe the same, Alex, just confirm that the data is up to date by giving us more information again.
Yeah, if your concern is a lack of, cellular service, that's not, we know that's not accurate from 20 years ago, right? So,
I don't know. But this wasn't my comment. Somebody felt that there was no coverage map. I found the coverage map in their appendix. It's just that it's really old data. So,
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think this was Sarah's comment and I agreed with it. And I think that information is available from the Department of Public Service.
so the question is whether you want to word this one as more information is required or it appears not to conform. And I think what you want to say here is more information is required because there is indeed a map that shows the coverage. It's just old.
Yes, I agree.
I agree.
Okay.
Sarah and Brooke, could you just explain? It's not clear to me that a coverage map is a statutory requirement. Why are we holding this plan up on that particular front?
It says that the utility and facility element should consist of a map and statement of present and prospective local and regional facilities and services, and it lists wireless telecommunication facilities I don't know that it does specifically call out coverage, but
Yeah, I think coverage is a different thing from the mapping that shows the locations of the facilities. So I would prefer not to use the coverage terminology. Because that's a different animal.
Okay.
really.
Yeah,
And
I
I-
think the way that we've been seeing these portrayed a lot of times is through the use of a coverage map. But I would agree with Brooke, is it's fine to be specific to, and make it an advisory one in terms of actual locations. But
okay,
that's the
so
way it, I think, is very helpful to the public to see that represented in terms of coverage areas. And a lot of plans have utilized that as a way of talking about the infrastructure necessary to provide critical services to the people living in the area, because you can have a lot of cell towers, but if your cell coverage is still spotty, that's a larger
Yeah.
issue. So
okay, so convert this to advisory recommendation, Brooke, I think is the consensus here, right?
Gotcha, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Um. So, implementation looks good. Compatibility, it looks like, what, what was provided here suggests that there is no, analysis as to whether this plan is compatible with other regional plans that abut this region. Is that what was being expressed here? In which case, I think it's another, the draft plan appears not to comply because it does not provide that. And I'm just, so I have to point out that I didn't read this plan. I just read this and I am offering these clarifications as somebody, a third party point of view, like what, just to be clear about what you're saying here. So whose ever assessment was that this draft plan did not provide a compatibility assessment with other abutting regions, is that truly the case? If so, then I think you need to say this plan appears not to comply, because that is a requirement to do so.
Yeah, I'd appreciate hearing from whichever board member identified this, whether that was you, Brooke, or you, Sarah.
that was
Just
me.
okay. So you felt it was just conspicuously absent, or partially there but not adequate?
I think there needs to be additional information in order for it to be adequate. I don't know, Alex, did you have other thoughts or?
I didn't, my focus on reviewing this plan was on the policy statements, the housing section, future land use section, and the future land use mapping. So I will cop to not having looked specifically at the compatibility with other regions section of the plan. So that's why I'm asking for a little help from you or Brooke, having looked at it, and maybe where it is in the plan now that my attention is being called to it. Maybe
Well, it's sort of
Christian, if
hard
you're
to
with
figure
us, you
out
can.
how to reply to something. Where is something when it's absent? So sorry, I
That
have
was
my
why.
yellow
That's
notes
why I
out
asked the
now.
question. That's why I asked the question. If it was just absent, that's good to know. If it's there but it's lacking some detail, that's good to know. Christian, maybe you can help us with where in the plan the compatibility with adjacent plans is located.
I wish I had a photographic memory of each element of the plan, but I'm not sure I do. I think the comment as we have a compatibility statement, but perhaps it's too vague might have been the issue we ran up against on page 17 of the plan.
While we're thinking about this, it looks like, is it Lorraine has her hand up? Maybe if you want to go ahead and speak. LB?
Okay, I'm unmuted. Yes, it is in the compatibility statement. That is the only place where it appears.
So there's just a compatibility statement that,
Yes, and then I think it is, I'm
asserts,
not going to purport to know the page number, but yes,
okay,
at the beginning, so page 17 sounds right, as Christian said.
okay, so so there's an assertion that you are compatible with adjacent regions, but no real discussion about it. Okay, so I think what Sarah
helpful.
suggested is, yeah, we need more information to see why you're making that assertion.
I would agree with
Agreed.
that.
Agreed, and I think this is, as you said, Janet, more of a appears not to comply as opposed to need more information, because there's no details within that section about the surrounding regional plans. So,
Yeah.
and that's typical for the other regional plans we've seen. So this one is a little bit of an anomaly.
Let me just ask, since we're on this section, whether the draft plan assesses its compatibility with member municipalities' plans. Is that in there? Or is there a similar statement with no further discussion?
I'm looking at the section that starts on page 17, and it's not as if it enumerates each of the municipalities in the
Right.
region and makes a statement specific to each one, which I don't think we would want to recommend. I'm not sure any
Right.
regional plan has done that. But there is a statement about the effort involved in trying not to usurp the authority or planning functions of the member municipalities.
Okay,
And a statement that there are not any significant conflicts between the regional plan and any of the municipal plans within the region
Yeah.
that have, so I think they're good on that front.
I do too, because as we know, they are tasked with confirming those plans and those planning processes for their municipalities. So we know that they've conducted those analyses in that respect. Christian?
Yeah, I just want to clarify. So obviously the statute we have is a statement indicating how the regional plan relates. So you want more detailed, not just the statement sort of on a philosophical level, but an actual comparison one-to-one with our neighbors.
Yeah, I mean, and I would just look at some of the other plans, Christian, and, they have a brief discussion, a lot of them, about how the two regional commissions work together on aspects of planning that involve both of them. And so just a little bit more, I think, is helpful.
Okay, thank you.
And Christian, I would add to that it's both about level of coordination, but also like actual reality of similarities and differences, between the regions, particularly at the border. Many of the other regional plans have a little bit of a description about the land use types along the shared boundary and to the extent to which those areas are compatible or somehow very different and in a way that might be incompatible.
Okay, moving on to the housing element.
Christian still has his hand up. Janet?
I think it was an accidental leaving it
Okay.
up. Yeah, okay, thanks, Christian. So there is some additional information requested here. And I think
Can
I
I scroll
would
down,
recommend
Janet, so
that
you can
this,
get I think there's more, maybe we should look at it all together.
Yeah, because I believe these are Alex and Sarah's comments, and one seemed that it was advisory and the other was not. So you can look at it together.
Just as a third person coming from the outside here, it's not clear to me what you're asking for. So I think there needs to be more clarity about what this additional information is that you're asking for.
Do you want to scroll down a little bit more? Because I think there's something, is this where we ran into something in purple? No,
Oh, yeah.
okay.
Yeah, so for the, my comment had to do with the mismatch between housing size, to housing units and the advisory recommendation that is listed below. I do think that's an advisory recommendation. That's not an issue for conformance with the element. So I'm happy with it being left as advisory and maybe take it out of the bullet for insufficient information. But Sarah, yours is the one about the need for more information on infrastructure necessary to accommodate the densities that are proposed. That seems more
So-
substantive.
So I had two, and my first bullet point was there's a mismatch of household size to housing units. And then the second one was the infrastructure. So I think you and I had the same first bullet point. And I was fine with these being advisory as opposed to required.
Okay.
If
And
that's the
then,
case, then those two items would then, be captured in the advisory recommendations, and then we would only be left with the item from the goal that we were gonna transport to this element having to do with the location of affordable housing. Needing more information to ascertain that. And I'm not clear that I'm trying to figure out where in our statutory guidance that the location of affordable housing is a required, portion of the regional plan as it relates to this element. Because they do in the plan discuss generally where housing targets are meant to be achieved, with regard to the growth areas and that sort of thing. At least 60% of the housing targets are sort of clarified in that respect. So do we want to talk about the location of affordable housing being a sort of potential red flag and, maybe not conforming with the element or not here?
I think what the statute suggests is that you should be looking at the current location of various types of housing, and that you should then take that information and see where you need to make investments in terms of price, quality, unit size, type, and zoning district as applicable. I think zoning district suggests location to some degree, but I think you're probably looking at advisory recommendations for all three of these from what I'm hearing here.
I would be most comfortable if we did it that way. If we actually in our response said that the plan appears to conform, and then we provided these several recommendations as advisory only.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. Sarah, are you
Yeah.
there as well?
Yep.
Brooke, how about you?
I'm following the planners on this.
Okay. And then I think you might want to address the purple or whatever color that is, magenta, highlighted thing separately. It sounds like this is a comment about maybe a little bit of an overreach in terms of defining substantial regional impact. Whose comment is this?
That one's mine, and yes, that's exactly what it was, because it's the Appendix G where that definition of required definition of substantial regional impact rests, and yeah, that was my thought, that it seemed that
So I
that
think that's a substantive comment, I think more so than advisory. And so you want more information to substantiate that, that the CVRPC should be reviewing most housing. Is that what you're suggesting, Alex? I think that this
yes.
just needs to be a little clearer. I think it needs to be more than an advisory recommendation. I think it's you want more information to substantiate this.
Yeah, to be clear, in Appendix G, here's what it says. It gives 3 criteria for what would be substantial regional impact, and then it goes on to say, in addition, because the Regional Planning Commission has defined housing as a critical need for the region, the commission will participate in the Act 250 review process for any project which proposes to increase the total number of year-round housing units in its host municipality by more than 2%, create more than 30 housing units of any type, or create more than 5 affordable housing units. And all of that is confusing to me if as to why that means it's a substantial regional impact.
Right, and it seems counterintuitive, really. Don't we want to sort of make this happen with as little, you know, with reduced permitting barriers, and therefore, you know, we know that this is a critical need. Why have the regional commission insert itself when these are being proposed? Is so you want more justification from the regional commission as to why the regional commission should weigh in on almost all these housing projects.
So
Okay.
can I interject my opinion about this and the reason why I made it purple?
Yes.
I think you folks are presupposing that somehow the involvement of the Regional Planning Commission is to thwart or oppose these projects, when in fact it could be the complete opposite. And having the Regional Planning Commission involved in the larger housing efforts or projects, I think is a good thing. And I think that this is assuming something that is not necessarily true, and there's no basis for that assumption.
So I think triggering substantial regional impact does create more permitting requirements and barrier. Not having the regional commission support that kind of proposal doesn't necessarily, but triggering the need for substantial regional impact. I think that's the issue here.
Well, I mean, the relevance of the substantial regional impact goes to the issue of inconsistency between a town and regional plan, such that the district commission would have to determine, first of all, if there is a conflict, is there a substantial regional impact such that the regional plan should take precedent over a conflict with a town plan? I'm not understanding what you mean by like it creates barriers to the housing just because there's a regional impact.
Is there truly a regional impact for anything that has more than 5 affordable units when you need hundreds and hundreds of affordable units? I think
It depends on where and the context, wouldn't it? Like in a community,
you know,
that
it adds
doesn't-
another level of analysis that has to occur at the district commission proceeding that wouldn't necessarily have to be there if it were not determined to be of substantial regional impact.
It would be helpful, since we have some folks from the RPC here, to explain if this was meant to be, as Brooke comports, in terms of supportive, or if this was meant to have an additional level of review, as I think Alex has identified.
Go ahead, Christian.
Jump in. I mean, from the context, I think it's not it's certainly not necessarily to point out a conflict of substantial regional impact. It could be a cue for us internally to coordinate with a municipality as a larger project might be working its way through the pipes. As 30 units is neither the Act 250 trigger of 10, nor is it the 50 units under a tier 1B area. It's kind of a mid-level point where we believe they begin to have a regional impact that we should just be part of it. Doesn't mean we're going to oppose it or support it. It really depends on all context. But it does mean we want to be paying attention to it. And just because of our project review committee, which reviews all projects of significant regional impact, reviews a project, doesn't mean they're going to necessarily even comment on it as part of an Act 250 permit or request standing for a hearing, for example. So it's more of an we've always used it as an internal trigger for when we need to be paying attention, but it really hasn't, I think, led to any additional review that has either impacted projects or created additional obstacles.
Seems that if you want it as an internal trigger, that's fine. Maybe don't call it substantial regional impact, because that has implications in terms of the legal review that our commissions have to perform. But Alex, I think we should defer to you. You're the one who raised this issue. What are your feelings after hearing from Christian on this?
Oh, I appreciate the different perspective. I like Brooke's perspective. If that's, was the intent, I would recant and say, oh, my mistake. I'm not convinced that was the intent. If you read what the first three examples or criteria are for substantial regional impact, it appears to be, at least the way I read them, appear to be more traditional in terms of regional plans and saying these are the types of developments that could have an impact, likely or potentially an adverse impact. And so we need to be concerned about them, and we want to, we want to go on the record as it having a substantial regional impact. I just like we have tried to comment in other regional plans about definitions of substantial regional impact that might be more akin to a local impact and not a regional impact. I see it similarly here. The low estimate for this region's housing production by 2030 is something like 2,500 units. I don't know how these numbers that Christian described as sort of being in the middle between an Act 250 trigger and something much, much greater, they still seem very, very low in relation to that overall housing target just for the next 4 years. So I'd appreciate, just as one board member, I'd appreciate having more information about why these numbers represent an actual substantial regional impact, because they just don't seem to, in my mind. As you mentioned, Janet, 5 affordable housing units in any particular project, that seems like very little. And similarly, a project of 30 housing units seems quite small in relation to the need and, you know, what should be happening.
Do you feel like, Brooke, you have direction here from your fellow reviewers on the board? Or do you need to discuss this a little further?
I may need to listen to the tape.
Okay.
Or read the transcript
Okay.
again and look at yeah, we don't need to spend more time today on it.
Okay, we can
because I think
revisit
we can-
next
we can
week. Yeah,
revisit it.
okay,
Thank you.
okay. Economic development, everybody thought that looked good. The only thing for flood resilience is what I raised earlier. I think that we want to see river corridor mapping as part of that element.
That would
And-
make the response shift from appears to meet to appears to not meet, and the
Yes.
substantive issue being need to show mapping of river corridor areas.
Yep. Yep. Identifies flood hazard and fluvial erosion. Maps including floodplains, river corridors, etc. So those need to be there. So this appears not to comply at this point. Okay, so moving on to the future land use. This is not as flushed. Brooke has left all the options in here until the board has discussion, I think. Is that correct, Brooke?
Right, I wasn't
Yeah.
clear.
Yeah, so I suggested that maybe what we might say is that the draft plan includes an FLU element that appears to comply, provided required revisions to the map are addressed as described further in this pre-application response. And then moving some of the general map issues that are identified further down to this section right under the introduction to the element before you go into individual map issues. So there are a lot of the required mapping revisions here. So that should be moved up there.
I'm confused, Janet. What should be moved up there?
This section, required mapping revisions, unmapped areas, should be moved up to the top here.
Yeah. I was
Before
trying
you
to-
jump into the various future land use map elements. Before you start talking about village centers, planned growth areas, and rural areas, I think you want to talk about these general map issues. See what I'm saying?
Right, I was trying to put the text of the plan first and then the map thing second, but, we can.
I see what you're saying, Brooke. Okay. So
Oh,
these comments are about policy. I got you. I see.
I think it could work either way. I'm sorry, I was being a little dense there. I didn't realize there were two required revisions in the same sort of section, one general and one mapping.
We can merge them together if that's easier, so all the required stuff's together and.
Yeah, I'd prefer that, Brooke. I think that's how we've done it with others. But I understand what you were trying to do, but yeah, I'd prefer to merge them.
Can we, now that we've talked about format, can we talk about the specific items?
Sure.
I did have an issue with what's highlighted in purple or magenta here about policy 2. It's a should if you read through that, not a shall. So I'm not sure if that should be required or maybe is advisory.
Yeah, I agree with Sarah on that one.
Yeah, that was mine. And as you can see, I said, I'm not sure this is really an issue, but I wanted to raise it. So we had a little discussion about it. So maybe we can just take a quick peek at what it actually says.
I
'Cause,
have
yes,
it up if
shall-
you want me to share it.
Shall
Sure, go
versus should
ahead.
is an important one. Thanks, Sarah.
Everybody see that?
Yeah,
Yeah, so when I read a sentence that says something should be permitted only if it includes the following, that doesn't read to me like a subjective sort of advisory statement. That's different from saying all development should do this. All development should do this is advisory, but large scale development should be permitted only if sounds mandatory to me because it has the words only if. So I'm happy to debate that, but that's where my brain got caught on this one.
and it's okay too, if they want it that way. You know, right? They can have mandatory language.
Right, yeah.
So, so it's just, you're just calling attention to something that sounds mandatory so that we give it the proper level of consideration as to whether it is substantiated that it should be mandatory. And maybe we want to hear from Christian as to whether the regional commission considers this a mandatory policy.
We are taking a lot more care to what policies we consider mandatory and non-mandatory. This one, I honestly don't know the answer. I do have a lot of questions about sort of where the edges of the mandatory conversation begin and end. If you take something like this and changed it to CVRPC shall support projects that include exemplary building and site design, is that still mandatory language? We're really just telling ourselves how we're going to act.
Right, right. It's just telling you to do something rather than, yeah. If that's your intent, I think that would not trigger this heightened scrutiny by the board. So, Alex?
Yes, I would agree with you on Christian's sort of rewording would remove it as sort of a mandatory provision that heightens our scrutiny. But given that it's worded the way it is, I just thought it would be good for us to have a conversation about the not just whether it reads as mandatory, but if it does, whether we have issues with that. Since it seems to imply that there's a new standard for exemplary building and site design, and that there would need to be a net beneficial impact based on a economic and community impact study. This is all in regards to large scale retail as a use.
I'm
Yeah,
going to stop sharing if that's all right.
Actually, if you can stay up there, because I think we have page 66
One.
that we would like to see also, Sarah, if you don't want.
oh, okay.
All right. So I'll just say thank you for calling us out, Alex. It doesn't read shall be permitted only if. So I was fine because it was a should only if. And also, I believe in some of the discussions about municipal impacts, municipalities that have had large scale retail have tried to also determine the net beneficial impact and the impact on services versus tax benefits. So this language was not new to me, and that is being considered by the regional plan. I'm fine with the language as is or as proposed to be clarified, as I think it highlights what has been, will probably continue to be an important issue regarding sort of the benefits burdens of what might be a burden to a municipality or to a region in terms of services versus economic benefits. So
Let me just add my thoughts about this. I didn't like necessarily the mandatory language. I thought it was kind of overly prescriptive. However, I felt like because it was confined to large-scale retail constituting a substantial regional impact, that was the piece of it for me that I felt allowed the mandatory language. Because it has to be in that bucket for the regional plan to address it, even if it's, you know, because it's more than one municipality.
Well, this is the kind of discussion I was hoping for, so I'm happy to have you delete the purple based on our conversation today. That'd be fine.
And the not sure if this is really an issue, Alex?
Is also in purple and informs what I just said. So yes,
Okay.
you can delete.
You want me to go
Oh,
to
the
page?
whole thing. I see. So you are, you're mollified by this conversation. You don't think there is an issue. Okay, I see. Okay,
Would you like me to go to page 66 now?
sure.
That'd be great. Because this one I fell on the other side of the fence, under rural conservation policies, item number 2. Says any development proposed within critical resource areas shall provide evidence as to why the development cannot be avoided and shall provide mitigation for natural resources impacted by the development. That gave me pause for concern because I thought it was overly prescriptive, but also standardless.
And what is critical natural resource?
Right,
It's
and.
not tier 3, doesn't exist anymore. Christian,
This one came up on my radar too, just because it felt like we do define critical natural resource. Maybe it should be in parentheses or
okay.
footnoted on page 31. I think I summarized it somewhere here. Yeah, it's a national natural landmark, state designated natural areas, sites located on the Vermont Natural Heritage Inventory or elevations over 2,500 feet, basically. And so we're kind of calling out these sort of high priority locations and saying, well, if you're really just going to go into these high priority locations, then we do want this higher standard of information, of justification.
But Christian, what about when you say and shall provide mitigation? What does that mean?
That's less defined.
Yeah, I find the reference back to the definition on page 31 super helpful. So thanks, Christian, for calling our attention to that. It really does narrow the field. I think it's the second part of the sentence that gives me some pause. Shall provide mitigation for natural resources impacted by the development. Things happen above 2,500 feet. I know they're subject to Act 250 review for the most part, but logging happens, for example. Other activities happen. And yeah, the provide mitigation for the natural resource impacted, that seems problematic, or at least just vague.
Too vague, right? Alex? Or
Well,
standardless or something.
potentially problematic in the sense that typically the way development review works is that when you're in a critical natural resource area or a sensitive area, there's an objective to try to avoid it, but also if you can't, to minimize. And mitigation is not always a default, right? It's not always a requirement that some sort of mitigation happen. If the development is designed properly, it gets an approval, whether at the local level or at the Act 250 level, and there may not be any mitigation. This seems to imply that there shall be mitigation in every instance, and that just seems problematic to me.
Christian, is your hand up?
Yeah, it still is kind of up, sorry.
Okay.
But I do have a question. So with more explanation, could this move from problematic into accepted to be within the scope of a regional plan? Again, just trying to figure out where the edges of the mandatory language concerns are.
My issue is, I don't know what shall provide mitigation means. In the Act 250 context, if you impact on primary soils, there is a protocol and standards in terms of saving primary soils on site in a different location or even off site. But it's a well-defined process or, mitigation happens according to a set standards. So here, I don't know what this means. Does it mean you have to conserve land? Does it mean you have to save the resource somewhere else or somewhere else on the property? And I think it's a term of art that's being used as a common parlance, which is what concerns me about it, that is not being defined.
Yeah, and Christian, my concern is that while the policy statement is specific to critical natural resource areas within rural conservation, land use areas, that last part about providing mitigation for natural resources impacted, I don't know what natural resources we're talking about if it's not the same critical resource areas as they are themselves. And since everything above 2,500 feet is deemed a critical resource area, it sounds like maybe any development above 2,500 feet requires mitigation because that's the natural resource being impacted, i.e. higher elevation areas. So, yeah, I too am not quite sure what the scope of this is in order to be able to give you better information or perspective on the mandatory sort of concerns that have been coming up from our board as of late with the regional plan review. So could it could
also
it be
sounds like
reworked? Sure.
Sorry, Alex.
That's okay. Go ahead.
It just sounds like that, the last phrase in the sentence is the most problematic because mitigation might not be necessary, depending on, how the development is approved in the end. So, so there is the mandatory aspect, but then there is this whether mitigation is even, or should be always present. So.
While Sarah has the document shared, could we go to page 69 and 70? Because there's a similar issue with some language on 69 under policies number 5. And it indicates light sources shall be shielded and not directly visible from public roads or adjacent residences. While shielding is great, I think the shall is applying to both pieces of that sentence. So what does it mean when a light source is not directly visible from public roads or adjacent residences? And then on the next page, which is the same section, but policy 12, at the top of page 70, it says new development should make all reasonable attempts to minimize noise pollution and shall not exceed accepted standards in residential areas. Again, it's sort of the standards that are concerning to me because, there are some local zoning standards for noise, or in a standalone ordinance, a noise ordinance. Some locales do not have sound standards. There are case law sound standards in Act 250. So I was just a little bit concerned about, again, that sort of mandatory language that's not really defining what the standard that's being referred to is really undefined. And should would be a great replacement in those two policies for shall, I think.
Light sources one, I think maybe Brooke, instead of not directly visible, saying, not producing glare, is sort of the way that a lot of municipal light, standards are expressed. Because this is a, it's sort of a, if your light is polluting others' properties and it's, pointed into the road, it can cause serious safety issues. I think,
So
and
Janet,
shielding is a pretty generally accepted standard these days. So
Yeah,
Sorry,
I think this is fine.
go
sorry,
ahead, Sarah.
just hard to raise my hand and share screen, so. I think maybe a better wording for number 5 could be, light sources shall be downcasting and shielded so as to not be.
Yeah.
Or so as to minimize visibility from public roads.
Yeah.
Because even with downcasting and shielded, they still might be visible, but I think the intent is to minimize visibility.
Yeah, it'll be visible no matter what from somewhere. The question is whether it is causing glare, and is directed in other, if it's directed at other properties or locations, that's the problem. So in any case, the shall, to me, isn't the problem there. I think the problem is, it just needs to be worded better, and I think Sarah's wording is better.
Yeah, I agree with Sarah's wording. That's great.
Would it help on number 12 to say, not exceed municipal standards for these residential areas? So if there are municipal standards, it defers to the standards in 12?
There are Act 250 standards with regard to commercial or industrial that has arisen through case law, so I wouldn't necessarily want them to limit it to just municipal standards.
Well, it's specifically for residential areas, Brooke. That's why I was going with that, because it seems like number 12 is specifically around
Residential.
residential.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and I think, Brooke, your point about not having it be unclear as to what standards are being contemplated would be solved by mentioning, applicable municipal or standards, even if there are other standards that might be applicable in a different circumstance. That's for that other entity to weigh in on. This regional plan, I think, would do well to buoy its member municipalities and whatever noise standards they have.
So it is 2:22. We are a little more than halfway through our efforts on this draft. We have until, let's see, 3:15. So are you all ready? Are you all prepared to just keep moving forward here? Just doing a check-in. I got 1 thumbs up. Sarah, do you need a little break or do you want to keep going?
I'm okay, whichever way people want to go.
Okay. Brooke, you good?
I'm good.
Okay, let's keep moving. Should we go back to the document?
Sure, you want me to go back to the document, or do you mean the document
No,
that you had?
I can go back.
Okay.
But just so I'm clear though, before we leave this, so you all would prefer shall, keep the shall in 12, shall not exceed accepted municipal standards?
A- applicable municipal standards, I think is what the wording was suggested, that was suggested.
Yeah, and Brooke, I want to be clear. I don't think it's our place to suggest how the language should change. I think it's our place to suggest what the problem is with the language as it's been drafted. And like Christian was here for our conversation, he can take, whatever alternate language we talked about, but I think it's more important to just call out this is an issue for conformance and this is what the issue is. And then it's up to them to decide how to either remove the recommendation or revise it.
Okay, Brooke, do you feel like you have adequate direction on those 2 points?
Yep,
Okay.
thank you.
So there's an advisory recommendation. Oh, so this is an advisory recommendation. I don't know whose it is, but I kind of wonder why make it.
When
What's the downtown and village centers policy number 7? Consider revising prioritization for placement of municipal and other government buildings to also include planned growth areas and village areas associated with the centers. I mean, why? I guess is the question.
So that's my comment. And because those areas are, in my mind, all part of a cohesive growth area, and planned growth areas are not exclusively residential. And so if a municipal or other government building wants to be located within a planned growth area that happens to be just on the other side of the boundary from a village center or a downtown center, seems like the priority should be the growth area, not just the center portion of the growth area.
I don't know. I kind of think that's for the Regional Planning Commission and its member municipalities to decide and not us.
However, I'd
And
add
if they
on-
want to prioritize the center, I think that's okay. It doesn't mean that it can't be built elsewhere. They're just talking about prioritizing the center.
it's just interesting because, and we'll get to this a little bit later on, but they also are proposing a special use district for the Capitol complex, which is the main municipal or main government center, I'd say, for the entire area. So when I sort of read this sort of another way in terms of, they're saying that the focus should be downtown areas, but yet we're having the special use district for like the prominent ones. So it didn't seem to ring true. But
Yeah, so that's a little bit of a separate issue from the advisory recommendation that I proposed. And frankly, Janet, I'm not attached to it. If you feel like it's better to delete it and leave that fully, at the purview of the municipalities and the regions, I'm fine with that. Again, Christian's listening, so if he takes my comment and says, "Oh yeah, that's not really as prescriptive as we want to be. We should be more inclusive of the entire growth area," he can take that under advisement, but we don't need to include it as an advisory recommendation. Policy number 7, page 57, I think is the one you were referring to.
Yeah. Okay. Brooke and Sarah, do you have any?
I think all of these advisory recommendations, all 4 of them, I should say, are mine. So if there are questions or concerns about any of them, I can speak to the others. Otherwise, we can move on. You can delete that one, Brooke.
Gotcha.
Okay. Any other comments or questions on the rest? Okay. Okay, those are the general required map revisions there. Brooke is gonna put the required with the rest of the required, right, Brooke?
Yeah.
And then this comment about other maps isn't really an FLU comment. It really is a comment for the different elements that require those maps. So I think it needs to be broken up and put in with those various elements based on the Appendix A maps and which element they are relevant to. And
Okay.
then this Appendix A, I'm not sure where this should go. I don't think it goes in the future land use section. So I don't know whose comment this is, but where do you think it belongs? On Appendix A, page 12, the percent town change in population.
Yep, that was my comment. And good question. Where does it belong? It's a demographic issue. So I'm scratching my head to think under what goal or element are
Economic
demographics addressed.
development or
It's not about
housing?
economics as much as it is just
Housing?
straight up population. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not sure is the honest answer to that question. It could be either of the two you mentioned, Janet, for Brooke's benefit, or it might be in a more general goal section. I can
And
peruse
is
as we
this
go forward.
is this a requirement or is it an advisory comment?
Good point. Yeah, Brooke, you've got this under required revisions or required mapping revisions. I use the term consider, which means I meant it as an advisory recommendation.
Okay, yeah.
So I think it should be placed somewhere else as an advisory recommendation, not required.
Yeah. And then we've already discussed the river corridor, so we'll just go to downtown and village centers. Okay, so downtown centers, Berry City, Berlin, Montpelier, Northfield, and Waterbury. They all appear to meet. And then we have 30 village centers and 19 municipalities. And probably most of them appear to meet the standards. And then there are several that are called out here. Do you want to go over any of these in particular? Do you want to go over each of them one by one? How do you want to proceed, board members?
I had a question. There were some that the comments were required revision and or additional supporting information. There were a couple that were only asking for additional supporting information, so I was a little unclear as to whether it was that doesn't meet standard or need more information because we can't tell or whatever. So if we could specify in each one of these so that I understand what the determination is, that would be helpful.
I think maybe we should go through them one by one.
Okay,
Agree.
Cabot, Lower Cabot.
I had this as being advisory, but it looks like this is now required. I'm fine with it being a village. I don't know who had the hamlet.
Yep, that was me.
Yeah, I think this is a combination of Sarah's and Alex's comments.
Yeah, so just to clarify, I felt that based on what I was seeing, that the Lower Cabot Village Center appeared to be more of a hamlet, even though the town's wastewater facility is located there. And so this is my suggestion to either remap it or provide additional supporting information to demonstrate that it is in fact a mixed-use center that brings together community economic activity and civic assets. Happy to look at it if you want to see it on screen or not.
I'll let you three decide.
Did you have an opinion about Lower Cabot? It sounds like I was on one side, Sarah was not as concerned.
Oh, I'm the tiebreaker.
Yeah.
Yep.
Nate, why don't you show it, Alex? On the map.
Okay. So here's the map, and Cabot is, the main portion of Cabot is up here in magenta or purple, and I believe this is Lower Cabot Village Center here. I'll put some roads on so it's easier to understand where things are.
And Alex, can you turn off the FLU map just briefly so we can kind of
Yes.
see what assets there are there?
Yep.
So it looks like it's a little residential area. Where's the town wastewater?
Good question. I I don't remember. I'd have to look at the look
Okay.
at some additional Google mapping to pin it again.
And is
But-
there anything else like a church or any historic granges or anything like that in that area? Anybody know?
I'm gonna leverage Google here, so hold on a moment. I don't know about the rest of you, but when I review these future land use areas for all these regional plans, I use both the future land use map and
So do
Google
I.
mapping to understand what's on the ground a little better.
Yeah, and I use the little street view.
Yep.
Icon.
I don't know if what you're seeing is helpful on the Google map, but this is the same area as on the future land use map or a similar area in here.
So I guess one question is whether Cabot, the town, is looking to grow there for any particular reason. You know, is there not enough room for needed housing in the village center that's to the north there?
I can't speak to Cabot. Sorry, this is Christian. I
Yeah.
can't speak to Cabot specifically. I don't know if any of the other staff that are on who might have been closer involved in these reviews and layout can recall some of the reasons why this was mapped as such.
Lorraine.
Hi. So, as I recall, not always the best memory, the main place that would be eligible for expansion in the main Cabot Village already has an Act 250 permit. Plus the fact that their main street is already quite filled in. So if there were to be any further development, it would be, flag lots or things of that nature. So I think that this was another area that they were anticipating where they would be able to densify. And I think there's already it's a little bit of kind of its own center of town. But I do remember them saying that about the upper, not what they would call the upper village, but the main part up there. So in as much as that's helpful.
Thank you. I think it sounds like the board reviewers would like to see more information as to, Cabot's planning around this and what makes it a future area of civic and economic focus. Should we go on to North Callis?
Sounds good to me.
Do you want me to share again?
Be great.
Okay, so this is a call for additional supporting information. I don't know whose comment this is, but anybody want to expound on this?
I think this Callis one was mine and it was meant to be
there's-
advisory.
They're leaving out a particular parcel that was in the Legacy Center and you just are asking for information about why.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. So purely advisory, Brooke, it looks like.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Okay, East Montpelier, Legacy expansion. Looking for additional information on the connection of the separated village area to the center. Do we want to look at the map here?
And this was partially, I think, mine. However, I was fine with this being advisory. But if you want to look at the map,
I'll bring the map up. Give me just a moment to get to East Montpelier. Remarkably faster from your computer than it is in my car. You look at that, we're already there. Here's East Montpelier.
And so we're looking at how the connection between that village area to the south is. So what road is that? That looks like Vermont Route 14.
14.
And is it walkable? Are there any other connections that help people get across the river? Or is it just State Road 14?
That's where, I believe they built the new bridge. So I know crossing the bridge, there's certainly sidewalk.
Yep, I think we drove across it on the site visit, if I remember right.
Yeah.
Does it have a sidewalk?
Well, I think Brooke confirmed it did. My recollection is that it does, but I don't fully remember. I can go there. Hold on.
I can jump in. The bridge does have a sidewalk.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Christian. Yeah, I don't have the same concern on this one. As it just appears to be, a substantial part of the village that is simply separated by the Winooski River and its associated flood hazard area. So
Okay.
just like the village area to the north, more adjacent to Route 2 and to the north and west of it, this seems like the same thing. It just happens to have a river in between. And as Christian said, a nice bridge with a sidewalk, so. But I'm happy to leave it in there as an advisory comment if we as a board feel like more information is necessary or I don't need more.
I don't feel like I need more.
I don't feel like I need more.
Okay, that one can come out. So we're looking at Middlesex Putnamville next. This one, it looks like somebody wants a required additional information or revision on.
Yeah, that's me, and you can tell just from the language. I've got similar sort of language for these places that
Yeah.
are not legacy village centers that don't appear to have a lot going on, and hence I'm looking for more information.
Okay. So
Happy
is
to
that-
debate that or show it on the map if Brooke and Sarah want to talk about it more.
Brooke and Sarah, are you good with Alex's recommendation here? Or
Yes.
do you want to discuss?
I'm good with this recommendation on this one.
Sarah?
I honestly do not have an issue with this area, but yeah, I'm
Little
willing to
more
listen.
information is okay?
Yes.
Okay. Orange. This one looks a little as though it's written as less than advisory. Do we want to look at this one? Looks like it's inordinately large, maybe, is part of the comment here. You want to look at it?
Yeah, I can bring it up.
Okay.
This is my comment. So let me get it up on the map. Hold on just a moment.
Well, he does that. I will say that I sort of touched on some of this too, and I identified it as maybe consider including it, some of the park into the village area instead, since it is a little bit of a park. But we have seen some places, I'm remembering in the Williston Village, there's also was a conserved parcel that they wanted to conserve as opposed to village center. So I think I'm fine with it as being advisory, but I'll let Alex share screens now.
Yep, still getting there. Hold on. If I remember right, Orange does not have a legacy village center, so this is a new one. And yeah, here it is. So here's the future land use map showing the village center area. I'll zoom in a little bit.
And so it looks like there's a large parcel there. Is that a park? And, yeah, what's,
Owned by the town.
yeah. And so part of the question is, to justify the extent here is because it's very large. Is that the only village center that's being proposed in Orange?
It is. Yep.
I mean, doesn't really concern me that much if that's the only one. Brian has his hand up. Brian, go ahead.
Yeah, just two things about Orange. One, they do have a legacy village center in that location, and the town of Orange does not have zoning. So that's why you don't see a village area in this location.
Mm-hmm. Alex, you want to click on the legacy?
Let me do that.
Layer.
Sorry about misspeaking on that one. Thanks for the clarification. There we go.
Oh,
There's the
teeny little
legacy.
thing. Yeah. Okay.
So I think maybe that's why my comment is or was what it was.
Yeah.
Because it's a fairly large expansion of what was a small legacy village center. Yeah, I phrased it as a required revision. If the board's not as concerned about it, I'm not. That's fine.
Brooke and Sarah?
I'm not as concerned.
I'm not as concerned.
All right, then let's remove it. One less thing for them to deal with.
Okay. Let's go to Williamstown. So looks like somebody wanted additional supporting information on the Legacy Village Center expanding to the west and north. High school is included in rural general and not the center. Why? So why not include the high school in this area is the question. Sounds
my
like
question.
an advisory, right? So I think Brooke, just make it advisory.
Okay.
You okay with that, Alex?
Yes.
Okay. Woodbury and South Woodbury in particular. This may be Alex's comment again, right? Do you want to go to Woodbury, Alex? South Woodbury?
Yep. Hold on a moment while I bring it up on the map, and then I'll share screen.
Okay.
But while I'm doing that, maybe the rest of you can chime in as to whether you initially thought this was an issue or after looking at it think it's an issue.
I thought it was an issue, but was fine with it being advisory as opposed to being required.
Looks like somebody else wanted some connectivity information on this
Yeah.
one, so,
I think Sarah's is the second,
okay,
paragraph there, additional supporting.
okay.
Correct.
Almost on the map, hold on. So here's the town of Woodbury, and we'll zoom in. Yikes, now I have to get the right village center.
It's the south.
It's the south one, all right,
Yep.
okay.
So, and the question is it a hamlet?
Yep.
Instead of a center? So it's the crux of a lot of your hamlet recommendations, Alex. Where's the economic activity and civic asset here?
So I can go to Google Maps and we can look at South Woodbury for such things.
Oh, it looks like it might have a church. If that photo is accurate.
And the clerk's office.
Oh, Alex,
I
there's
know,
plenty of
so-
civic asset there.
What a terrible comment. What was I thinking?
Okay. You're gonna let go of that one, right?
Here I am.
Okay. So now you have a whole bunch of advisory recommendations to consider for village centers.
One question about Sarah's comment. Do you all still want additional information on connectivity? Was it to separate?
Oh, along the Dog Pond Road section? Sure, why not? It's advisory, right? Okay, so do you want to go over these advisory recommendations? Are there any that anybody object to? Otherwise, I think you could just, they're advisory. Christian can take them or leave them.
Agreed.
Basically, there's several that suggest expanding the village center. And is that what all of them are? Oh, no, one of them is about a connection because of a river corridor cutting through it. And there is one suggesting hamlet rather than village center. So the rest are all consider expanding, except these first two, which are maybe Riverton is a hamlet and maybe we need a little more information about connection for the lower portion of Lower Cabot. Good
So
to
I
go?
think the Williamston advisory recommendation is duplicative with what was already discussed above, so it can be removed.
Oh, down
Or-
the bottom here. Oh, okay,
Yeah.
yeah,
Actually, we're
Removed or
gonna
just
keep it.
blended in.
yeah. Okay,
Actually, we should keep it there in the advisory section, because the other
And-
portion was
right.
not.
and then
Gotcha.
add the piece about connectivity. Oh, no, that's Woodbury, sorry. Sorry, got it. Okay, so you're good with village centers, planned growth areas. Looks like there's some questions only about the planned growth area in Berlin. Right?
Yeah, this one I was a little bit confused because it was like, should perhaps be considered for, and I wasn't exactly sure if that meant it didn't comply or we needed more information because we couldn't tell.
So Alex or Sarah, you want to help
Yep.
Brooke with this one?
Yep, that was mine, and it was, that PGA area across Route 62 along Airport Road, which doesn't have sidewalks. I asked for either additional information on complete streets planning, or recommended that maybe this should be considered for a transition or infill.
That's where we've had meetings at the Agency of Transportation, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Alex, what are your feelings on that area?
Yeah, I understand Sarah's point, and I didn't highlight it myself when I was reviewing it, so I didn't feel as strongly about it, but I respect her point, and I'm happy to request that additional information. Yep, happy to go along.
Okay,
So that stays a required revision? Not
required
advisory
information or revision.
or revision, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, and for Christian's benefit, like additional information along the lines of, hey, here's the town of Berlin's capital budget and plan, and it shows, the extension of sidewalks at year X, or here's a pedestrian accessibility plan and, commitment of funding or so, anything like that can make the difference between just having to change the FLU type and being able to leave it as is with some additional supporting information.
thank you, Alex. Okay, moving on to village areas. There are 23 depicted in 12 municipalities, and most of them look okay. There are some questions about a handful of them. So, Berrytown, Upper Graniteville Village area. There's no corresponding center. Can we look at that one, Alex?
I sure can, if I can elucidate it on the mapping. Barry
And
has
then-
so many village centers,
Well,
it's hard to find, but yep,
Yeah,
I'll
while
be there
you're
in a second.
looking, there's the village area east and north of Berry City, PGA, in the vicinity of Cassie Street, lacks sidewalks and should be considered for a transition infill or additional information provided on complete streets in that area. So let's look at Upper Graniteville first. Then we can look at that village area east and north of the PGA.
Okay, so here's Berrytown, or at least a chunk of it, and it's many village centers. And I believe the Graniteville one is here, so I'm going to zoom in. And as you can
Right.
see, it's a
There's no
village
center.
area
Yeah.
without a center. That's why I highlighted it.
Yeah, that's not okay. Does not meet statutory description of a village area. So maybe there can be a center somewhere in there. Is there a mix of uses along there anywhere? Are there any civic assets?
I'm not sure. Those would all be, I can zoom into that in Google Map, but it's probably best to just leave that up to the Regional Planning Commission to work with the community to speak to that. Here's the Google Map. There's a town forest.
There's a river outfitter.
Yeah. There's not much else showing up on Google Maps, but
Yeah.
not the be all end all.
Is it residential?
The area appears to be, yes.
Okay. Yeah, so I think more information, well, first of all, it can't be village area without a center, so,
Could you
so
zoom
that
out a
needs to
little
be,
bit to see if it's connected at all? No, it's not. It's separated by the
Mhm.
enterprise and the village center.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so that absolutely has to change as to whether it can be a new center or, and maybe with some village area around that, or whether, it should be rural general. I think, yeah, we'll have to leave it up to the planning commission to decide. But if it's going to be, a center, we definitely need information about, mixed use, civic assets, et cetera.
It's like Brian has his hand up.
Oh, sorry, Brian, go ahead.
That's all right. I had them both up, Alex, so you were right the first time.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I will readily admit that this is an error in the map. There is a historic district in Upper Graniteville that is mostly on the street, sort of on the western edge of the what is currently shown as the village area. So there's the Upper Graniteville Historic District in there, and then the entirety of this area is served by water and sewer as well, except for that northeast corner up just north of Donahue Road, that little, whatever that road is that's sticking up out of there. That's the only part that's not in the water and sewer service area. But definitely acknowledging that the intent was there was a village center that overlapped with the legacy historic district, and that the village area should be around that, if that helps simplify your conversation.
Yep, we'll just, as Janet said, need obviously a revision to the map when you come back for final, but also some information to make it clear that that new village center, meets the statutory definition of a village center. So not just clustered housing, but some sort of commercial and or civic uses, or planned civic or commercial uses to make it a place to gather and such.
Okay, let's go to East Montpelier, legacies.
Were there
And
other
that-
buried town areas to look at?
Yep. There's that
Oh,
Cassie
I'm sorry.
Street.
Yeah, there was an area to the north of the PGA. Sorry. East and north of the PGA. So a little bit north, Alex. Keep going north there. That village area there. And the question is there infrastructure, sidewalks? What's the story with those? I think there are two areas actually, Alex, if you zoom out just a little to the south.
Gotcha.
So
Here and here.
these two village areas outside of the planned growth area, can they be part of the planned growth area? Or what distinguishes them? Why are they mapped as village area? And if village area, what are the plans for that area? And are there pedestrian accommodations, or will there be, et cetera?
I'm happy to have more discussion on this. My initial look, especially for this area that I'll zoom into here, since I have control, this seems very connected to Berry City, and I'll turn off the future land use map so you can see it. I don't see how that's not connected. I don't need more information to deem that to be an appropriate village area designation. Maybe it's different on the northerly one, but at least on this one, I'd be interested to hear, what the concern is there, given the development pattern.
I think my concern would just be, why isn't it planned growth area?
Oh, right. Sorry.
Because
Gotcha.
there's, I think it may be partially because it's not the same municipality here. Is that right? That I see the Berry City line there. So that might make sense.
Maybe Brian can illuminate us on this since
Yeah.
he has his hand up.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
thanks, Alex and Janet. Berrytown did not want this to be a planned growth area, which is why it is a village area in our draft.
They say why?
Just that it didn't match, that sort of level of density didn't match their future expectations for the area.
Does the town have other village area that, other than the Graniteville that we already sort of knocked down?
It does. It has lots. I think. We zoom out. I just remember thinking, boy, there's a lot going on in Barry in different spots. So
Okay, so there is village area in
There's-
East Barry there.
and there's planned growth area around this center.
Yeah. Okay.
Anything more on the map, or can we return to the document?
Did you want to see the north area where Cassie Street is? that
We
the
just
same?
saw that.
No, we're to the E. Yeah, this is the one on the north.
Yeah, so is that connected? Essentially connected in a way that parts of it maybe. What are the plans? I guess I would ask for more information on those two.
Well, which board member brought this particular area up? Maybe they have some something to say about it. I didn't. I felt this area was fine.
Yeah, that was me, and it just seemed to be lacking sidewalks and just felt like it needed to address complete streets or perhaps should be more transition infill.
Christian, go ahead.
I just want to add to the conversation that both Casey Street and Camp Street, kind of that Y going north-south, splitting up from, all have traffic volumes below 1,000.
Per day?
Yeah, average annual daily.
Okay. Okay.
The implication being that they're safe to use in a complete streets manner without dedicated bike lanes, sidewalks, and other kinds of amenities.
Correct. That is how we treated the low volume roads that were in densely populated rural or mixed use areas.
Christian, since you're here, is that not how the VAPTA methodology anticipates it? I seem to recall similar treatment in some other regions. But I can't remember if it's VAPTA related or not.
I'd have to double check. It seems likely.
Alex, I recall, sorry, this is Brian speaking. I recall in the VAPTA methodology that it specifically calls out streets with traffic volumes below 1,000 from the average annual daily traffic and with speed limits under 25 miles an hour do not require sidewalks and other amenities to qualify for that complete streets designation.
Thanks. I thought I remembered something similar to that, and I believe NVDA had made a similar case for why they had certain areas as village area, not planned growth, and the distinction was something we discussed for them.
I think the ADT information is the helpful information I was looking for, so thanks.
Okay. You want to move on to?
And then
You have what you need, Brooke?
are we deleting Barrytown for the east and north?
I think
Okay.
just more information, right? On those.
Maybe you could bring the document back up, Janet, so we know what we're
sorry, yeah.
looking at
Yeah.
in terms of I think we're talking about I can't remember if we're talking about advisory or required.
Yeah, right here. I think rewording this so that it's looking for more
Advisory,
information.
Right,
Yeah.
but I think some of that was just received, but that could be formally provided, that'd be,
Yeah, right.
it just
Okay,
seemed to be, I
so-
remember being out there, it seemed to be more of like, potentially it could be arterial collector, but if the ADT is that low, then that sort of nullifies it, but
So, East Montpelier's Legacy Center expanded to the west and east. And village area to the southeast, separated by river corridor. Looks like somebody wants to see more information on the connection of the separated village area for East Montpelier. That good? You
Isn't
wanna,
this the same issue?
Yeah, it's a duplicate.
It's
Oh, it
just
is,
village
okay.
area instead of village center.
oh, yeah, so probably it should be here rather than the village center. Because it's talking about whether the village area is connected to the center. So I think you can eliminate it from the village center discussion, Brooke.
Okay.
We're in a required revision portion of the document right now. I just want to make sure that's where what we want to, what we want to be saying is that like you must.
No, we're not. It looks like we are in an unable to determine, need more information on this one.
Yeah, and I would call it, there's a mistake in there anyway. I wrote the village area the proposed village area appears to meet the statutory standards for planned growth area. So the
Oh,
language
okay,
of
yeah.
that is screwed up
Good
anyway,
catch, Brooke.
but I think that we had decided on advisory on this, right?
Yeah,
Wasn't it?
or no, more
I don't
information.
know.
More information on the connectivity is required.
Except we had the discussion about the fact that there is a sidewalk along the new bridge connecting
Oh,
Route
okay.
14 to this area. So yeah, I wasn't in the
Okay,
mind
so
that it was.
maybe
I have
this
to
is
read. I
just
have to
delete.
read it. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Cool.
Thank you, Alex. All right, so you have 2 advisory recommendations for Plainfield. Consider adding village area for the former Goddard College. And a legacy center and neighborhood surrounding it are proposed to be expanded. Village area to the north of the center should be considered for village center. Village area along East Hill Road and to the south may also be considered. So these are advisory, it looks like. And the suggestion is to just expand the village area to include Goddard College, the former Goddard College. But this one, it looks like is really a village center comment. Expand the center to include some of these other areas. So if this one is to stay, Brooke, I think it needs to be relocated to the village center advisory recommendations.
Gotcha.
The first one I'm confused about. It says consider adding a village area for developed parcels associated with the former Goddard College that are adjacent to the Plainfield Village area. I'm happy to zoom into the map. I don't know what parcels we're talking about. I thought most of Goddard College in Plainfield was mapped as village area.
Let's look, Alex.
Okay. Coming right up. I'm no expert on Goddard College campus, but this is the relevant portion of Plainfield.
You want to put parcels on?
Thought that Goddard, yeah, let me put the parcels on, sorry. I thought that Goddard was all on this side of the highway. And it's all mapped as village area, so I'm just not sure which other parcel. Are we talking about something over here, perhaps?
No, I don't think Goddard owns all of what's on the west side. It's, get the parcels on.
Whose comment was that?
this was mine, it's, where's East Hill Road along, and to the south along Brook Road? I don't know if you can
Zoom in a little.
zoom in.
Trying.
Road and East Hill are further south, Alex. They're kind of in the southeast quadrant of your map right there.
Oh, so opposite from Goddard down.
Yeah, right. Main Street East.
Uh,
Yeah, there's
I think
to
my
the-
comment was, Legacy Village Center and neighborhoods surrounding it are proposed to be an expanded village center with some of the legacy neighborhood becoming village area. Village area to the north of the center along Marshfield border should be conserved for village center, and village area along East Road and to the south along Brook Road and Berry Hill Road may also be conserved for village center. So there's a contraction of a legacy village center, and just maybe consider including some of the village area into the village center. I don't know if there was a particular reason for the contraction and what the delineation between village area and village center was, but
Okay, well, it seems like the comment on the document, which, sorry, I'm gonna stop sharing so you can go back to that.
is advisory,
Just needs to be reworded because it doesn't, I don't think it says what Sarah just said.
right? Sarah, maybe you can work with Brooke on that one.
I think those were in my comments that I sent, but I'm happy to help.
Okay. Okay, and that was advisory. So transition infill, there's a paragraph in here, and this happens in the other sections too, where it says the pre-application checklist does not provide a list of municipalities with map transition infill areas, so reference is made to the FLU map. But this is part of the board response, but it comes before it says board response. So Brooke, I would just move all these to after the board response
Okay.
is, so,
Yeah.
and that's the case for each of these future land use areas now.
I've had
and-
like half of them in that order and half of them in the other order. And so
okay.
I chose the wrong way to make it consistent, so I'll switch it back.
And there are no hamlets, so I think the board response should be the draft regional plan appears to comply because hamlets are not a required element. So I would just say that clearly so people understand that it's in compliance, or it appears to be, because you don't need hamlets. Okay, so now the rural areas. Everybody okay to continue? We're 2 minutes over. Do you want to try to wrap this up, or should we move on?
Let's wrap it.
We
Okay.
should wrap it.
Okay. So, board response. The rural general areas appear to meet the standards with a few exceptions. There's I think this isn't really a rural general problem. It's a FLU general problem that we should move to the beginning. Very small polygons that appear to be interstitial space. Love that word, Brooke.
Yeah, while all of the regional plans have this issue more generally, I think this plan has it more particularly with regard to the rural general category. That's
Okay.
why Brooks got it listed here based on what I was suggesting, I think. So
Okay.
I'd kind of like to keep it here and just, let Central Vermont know that they're not alone with regard to the more general issue of like
Okay.
slivers and tiny polygons of all sorts and in various places, and any cleanup that can happen would be great. But
Okay.
this is a particular one.
Okay. Good with that.
Williamstown is just a duplicative. I didn't know where to put it, village center or rural general, so.
Yeah, the
clean that up.
Williamstown one, I think I would put with village center, like why not include the high school? And that's one that we already discussed, right?
Yep.
Yep.
So I think you can eliminate it here, Brooke.
Agree.
And then rural agriculture and forestry. No comments. And then rural conservation with some exceptions. So we have several. Oh, I remember this. So it seems like this is mostly one comment that occurs in a lot of different rural conservation areas around the throughout the region. And so to me, it would make sense not to have this broken down by town. What do you all think?
I agree.
Yeah, it could be more efficient by saying, here's this issue that appears in several different municipalities.
Right.
Those municipalities include the following.
Right. What do you think, Brooke?
That's fine. I was just building the blocks, so we can certainly, push them all together.
Okay. But now I can't recall, is there another, there may be another, there are a couple of these that aren't that particular problem, the flood hazard issue. So
Every
the
town
flood
is-
hazard issue you can condense into one.
Yeah.
Here's one in Berrytown where somebody is suggesting that the town school should be an alternate FLU type. I think that would depend on what's around it, but maybe rural conservation doesn't make sense for it is the implication. So, board members, do you want to look at that, or are you good to just let this one stand as is? Wasn't
Mine.
It is a little weird to have a school in the rural conservation category, I guess.
I think that's mine. I'm of course then happy to have it just stay. I will note that on the last issue, sorry to go backwards. One thing I tried to do when I highlighted this flood hazard area issue around specific downtowns and such was to provide some specific examples of where that issue was. So if we combine them all, we will lose that specificity. I think that's okay. I just want to let you know that like for Berlin, there's some slightly different language in the required revisions than there is for Marshfield with regard to this rural conservation and flood hazard area. That's all.
I'll find a medium, in the middle, because I think where you call out the locations, I think that is useful. That's right with
Yeah.
you all.
Yeah,
I'll condense it. So
Thanks,
we don't
Brooke.
Yeah.
repeat the same thing. Okay.
It
Okay,
looks like
what about
the next
the-
one that's not flood hazard is
well, what did you decide to do about the town school in Barry?
I claimed it and said it should absolutely stay because,
Okay. Got it. Okay, next one, go ahead, Alex.
yeah, I'm just looking for the next one. You can too. That's not flood hazard related with regard to rural conservation.
It's orange.
Orange. Yes, exactly.
This one?
Can't remember. I'm sorry, but I think I was the one who raised this issue with regard to its larger village center, becoming much larger than the legacy. And the rest of you said it's fine. So I think if that's fine, then maybe this comment goes away as well.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah, it should go away if the other one's going away.
okay. Got that, Brooke?
Yeah.
Okay,
It's just
Warren,
it's just the advisory recommendation under orange that could stay.
Gotcha.
Okay, and then somebody's asking for more information about a Legacy Village Center expansion in Warren.
I think that was me. I know I was fine with that being advisory.
Okay. You got that, Brooke?
Yep.
Okay. And Washington is the FLU issue, Waterbury's the FLU issue, I mean, flood hazard, I should say, sorry. Right?
Something
Yeah,
different.
flood hazard,
Same with Woodbury.
Woodbury, flood hazard, and that's it. And then,
Yeah, well, we just get to special use.
right, and I definitely agree with this, that there needs to be some sort of description of what this special use category's purpose and configuration should be, or not configuration, but what's included in it and what its purpose is. And that the interstate, you should probably map the way your adjacent regions are mapping it.
So I just want to jump in on this one because to me, it makes no sense to, I mean, normal roads is one thing and, you know, the methodology notwithstanding. It makes no sense to me that the interstate should be anything other than like the interstate or a special use category that is not, it's never going to be the adjacent flue that I can tell. It's federal property that you can't do anything to. And I understand everybody else has done it differently, but I think Central Vermont is correct in doing it this way. I mean, I'm not a planner, so it doesn't make sense to me that it should be like utilized then to calculate, you know, where housing goes or anything. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah. Sarah.
There are absolutely times where it might be appropriate, just and taking a look at the bigger, broader picture of where we've gone and how we sort of treated some of these different things in terms of transportation infrastructure. Northwest, Chittenden, we had them sort of include and go down sort of to the middle of the right of way in terms of splitting it between and including the future land use from either side. However, I think we have been willing to consider, I think in Rutland, it came up in terms of there was a jug handle or something else that was not your typical right of way. I'm thinking like railroad sidings, those sorts of things, where sort of that cumulative effect might be something else. I don't recall that there's a welcome center in this area. I know there was in Northwest. But you're right, this is an area that's not going to be anything other than federally owned transportation corridor. But I think just trying to establish some level of consistency throughout the state, unless there is a peculiarity. And I think that's where VTrans wound up weighing in too.
And I think V-Trans did weigh in early on this, but here's an example of where Central Vermont meets Two Rivers? Or no, where are we? And you can see the interstate in this special use category, and then it disappears into rural ag forest and rural general. Yeah, I think maybe until VAPTA decides to change the way that everybody's doing this, I think it makes sense to be consistent.
Yeah, that was going to be my point. I appreciate what you're saying, Brooke, but two responses. One, this is a VAPTA methodology, and all the regional planning commissions make up VAPTA, and they work together to come up with a reasonably consistent approach, and this is not it. So I think it just needs to change in order for to follow that protocol, which is what we are called on to sort of check in on. But two, it's not just the interstates. I mean, this is an issue for state highways, which are owned by the state and are not ever going to become housing units either. And some of those state highways are just as big as the interstate corridor. Not very many of them, but several of them are quite large. And yeah, municipal highways too at a lesser scale. So I think we're just in a place where you got to do it one way or the other, and VAPTA elected to do it this way, and that's what all the other regional commissions across the state have done. So I just think at this time we need to tell Central Vermont that it's a required revision to do it similarly.
Christian, go ahead.
Thanks. Yeah, I just wanted to share our thought process on this and sort of how we would advise our commission in making decisions about the map. So we brought up the examples where it has a rather large impact on how we assign housing targets. So for example, a place like Waterbury might see their planned growth area essentially double if we start mapping it. Or not, their planned growth area might close to double if we started mapping the interstate right away as part of the adjacent land use area. The example with the border with Brookfield, sure, if it's rural ag out there, it doesn't seem to be terribly consequential, although it would be rather inconsistent internally. We're not so much hung up on the VAPTA methodology, given it really only applies to how Tier 1B areas are mapped under statute. So we're really looking at this special use area as an opportunity to step in where there is a hole in potentially current statute that's going to skew or lead to unequal distributions of, say, housing targets. The other example I think we could have brought up under the rural area, rural conservation, is how we're treating the flood hazard areas in our downtowns. I think we really need an alternative use besides the Tier 1, the neighborhood and center land uses. And something like a special use resilience area is going to be necessary in some of our downtown areas and the river corridors. Otherwise, we are, through the housing targets again, in many cases, prioritizing new development and housing in high-risk locations, and that's certainly not consistent with the rest of our plan. So, our reading of the statute is that we do have a fair amount of flexibility in how we use the special use area. And I think it's the only really pressure valve right now to be consistent and make a sort of a future looking map that's not just a map of current uses.
So if I can paraphrase, Christian, one of your arguments is, at least for the planned growth areas or areas planned for growth, is that including the highway right-of-way sort of inflates the size of that planned growth area and dilutes the density calculation to some degree.
Kind of the opposite. By increasing the area, we then assign
density.
more houses on areas where it's unachievable. And at times the magnitude is rather large.
Have you had this conversation with VAPTA?
No, we haven't really met with VAPTA for quite some time. We'll be meeting next week, and I'm sure I'll bring it up with them then.
Okay.
Oh, Christian, I hear what you're saying. At the same time, there's oftentimes two sides to any highway right away, and one side may be planned growth and the other side may not be, and we're not telling you what, exactly how to map these highway interchanges. We're just saying no other region is mapping them as special use, whether it's a state highway or an interstate. So follow that consistent protocol and you can decide where the planned growth area ends with regard to the highway right-of-ways, and whether perhaps those areas get captured in the adjacent future land use area, whether that's rural ag forest or rural general or whatever. So I think, especially with regard to Waterbury, I think that's a fixable issue while still being consistent with the VAPTA methodology. But I would also say that I understand your point about like areas that can't easily be, put in a different FLU, such as the flood hazard areas within downtowns. But again, the housing targets and how they're reached and the allocation of future housing growth in areas, all the regions are dealing with that same issue. And until I think VAPTA comes to some consensus about how to use or create a new type like special use or flood resilience, like I don't think we can have a different version for just this region when flood hazard areas impact all regions, not just central Vermont.
Well, I'll say something that may be a bridge to the other conversations we need to have about special use, and that is, the statute itself provides the regional planning commissions with authority. It says, as appropriate in any other special land use category, the regional planning commission deems necessary. So they do have the statutory authority to establish a special use category and to define what it means, at least under the current statute. Which I think goes directly into the conversation about the capital, because there's only one of those in all of the state of Vermont. And I don't have a problem with them having indicated that would be a special use blue area.
I don't either, Brooke. I think what the bigger issue is interstate and other things that cross these regional boundaries and aren't particular to any particular region. That's not, I don't think, what the special use category was meant for. Part of the whole regional future land use mapping under Act 181 was to bring consistency across the state. And so I think this is a VAPTA discussion to be had. If VAPTA wants to change the methodology, I think that would be fine. But right now, I think with regard to these interstate corridors, let's see them like the rest of the regional commissions are mapping them. Sarah.
So, I think the other thing, just to throw it out there, is for this region where the interstate is going through relatively rural areas, it might not be as big of an issue. But I'm recalling instances within Northwest, I think like Swanton, that the interstate was within a fairly developed, I think it was within their village center, maybe downtown area. The rail yard in Burlington on the waterfront in the middle of their downtown PGA area. And so it was having a sort of more of an impact on bisecting things. I agree that this is a VAPTA conversation, but I feel that the interstate is not necessarily a special use area. I think with the other special use areas that Brooke spoke to is, I'd like to hear more information, because with the Capital District, it was part of a designated downtown area and it's being pulled out into its special use district. And it's the very essential pieces of the Capitol complex, but it's not the entirety. And that's where it was sort of like, well, tell me more. Why is this portion peculiar to a special use district in these state-owned buildings, but not all of them? And so that's, I think, two different conversations to have. More in terms of information for the special use of the Capitol complex, and with the special use for the right of way. It's, unless there's some sort of abnormality or something of that nature, I think we've been willing to consider those. It needs to meld in with the adjacent land uses.
Okay, so go ahead. Sorry, Brooke, go ahead.
I'm just trying to understand when you say the Capitol complex. I mean, to me, that's the Capitol and the Supreme Court building and maybe the pavilion. I mean, that's
I don't know. Do you want to show the map, Alex, on that?
Sure. Give me just a moment.
But are you suggesting it incorporates like the MD building on the other side of State Street or the building we're in here, kind of thing. That I'm in, not you guys.
Almost there.
You zoom
Here's
in,
the future.
Alex.
Yeah, here's the future land use viewer for Montpelier. The white area in the middle is that special use area we're talking about. And I'll zoom in so you can see it a bit better. And I'll take the,
So it includes the Capitol building, the pavilion, and is that the Supreme Court?
Yeah.
Yes.
And then it includes the Hubbard Park.
A portion of it.
Well, it's all one parcel, so
The park extends up behind onto the adjacent parcel.
yeah.
right,
And so you
presumably this
have-
is the state-owned portion, not the city-owned portion.
So you
Yeah,
have,
so Sarah's just asking for more information about, so what besides the state complex here as mapped and the interstates is included?
also Norwich College,
Norwich University?
which I think we made some provisions for UVM as being a special use district.
Yeah, so I think it still stands, just provide more information about what constitutes the special use district, what its purpose is, and why, you know, only particular areas of state-owned properties in downtown Montpelier are included. Sure.
So are these correct the way that they are in Marytown? The railroad corridor or right of way area is required revision, but additional information is requested on Montpelier, Moortown, and Northfield.
Sarah and Alex, can you answer Brooke?
Yeah, that's fine. The way it's constructed with only Barrytown being required revision, I think in part because my understanding of the protocol from VAPTA is that railroad areas are supposed to be enterprise along with airports.
And I didn't mean to exclude the highway one in the beginning. I was just looking at page 30.
And Sarah's nodding, Brooke.
Okay.
And Christian has his hand up. Go ahead, Christian.
Thank you. Just as we're closing out, want to get a little more clarity. So it sounds like with regard to special use, this board would require limited use of the special use area. So we're thinking about expanding at that time to include our flood hazard areas. That would seems to be like something this board would potentially not approve in a final plan.
That's
think,
my
yeah, to
position
be
as one board
consistent.
member. Yes, Christian, you proposed, you didn't propose, you mentioned that at the meeting we had after the site visits in your region. It was my understanding that that was a thought that you just wanted some feedback on, but was not something that you were proposing. So yeah, my feedback at that time was that that was potentially interesting, but also problematic. But it wasn't part of your pre-application proposal, so I didn't think the board needed to actually render sort of formal comments on something that wasn't in your proposal.
I would just say that informally, the same goes for that would go for the interstate conversation that we had. that we had, and that, you know, follow the VAPTA methodology and talk to VAPTA about changing it if need be down the road.
Okay, so you're deferring to the VAPTA methodology. I was kind of, VAPTA methodology obviously statutorily dictates areas for consideration under Tier 1B. I figured the rest was just for consistency, but looks like everything beyond that is also being included as the standard by which you're reviewing it.
Yeah.
Certainly a strong consideration on my part, Christian, and I would just reiterate, I think what I said at our meeting, that mapping the sort of idea, not your proposal, but the idea to map many flood hazard areas in a special use flood resiliency category instead of rural conservation it has some there's some issues with that go beyond just what VAPTA methodology might say today or in the future. And I would call out particular downtown areas that you have in central Vermont where you've mapped portions of the downtown with existing streetscapes and residential density and neighborhoods as rural conservation. That's problematic in my mind, and mapping them as special use flood resiliency might also be problematic, given the access to state programs and grant priority and funding for such areas, if and whether that would happen if they were in that special category or the rural conservation category.
Thank you for the feedback.
Okay. So where are we here? This is special use.
We're done.
I guess we're done.
no-
We're
we have
at
no
tier
issues on
1B,
Tier 1B
and we
are
didn't
good.
really, you didn't note any problems with the tier 1B municipalities. So yeah, we're done. Any other discussion on this pre-application response to the Central Vermont Regional Plan from anybody? Okay. Then I will, oh, I'm not sharing. Okay, good. I don't need to stop sharing, but I need to find my agenda. I think it is here. Our next agenda item, half an hour late, is an executive session. Sarah?
The board needs to discuss pending and probable Act 250 appeals and enforcement actions, personnel staffing matters, and to have confidential attorney-client communications on these matters. I move that we find that premature knowledge of these matters would place the board at a substantial disadvantage in the board enter executive session. Sorry, I made that sort of a catch-all, but.
Okay. We have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Kirsten. Thank you for rejoining us. Okay, all those in favor of the executive session, please say aye. Aye.
Excuse me,
I-
we just have
Aye.
discussion on it for a moment before we go.
Yes. Brooke?
Do we have any items?
Do we have any enforcement or litigation issues to discuss? Because I didn't see any listed on the agenda, so I just wanted to check with council if that's necessary today.
No specific sorry, this is Jenny Ranas, General Counsel. We do not have any specific enforcement or litigation items, but there may be other things that the board wishes to discuss. So I'll defer to you guys.
Sure, and if there are, I think we just need to amend the motion a little bit, maybe.
Sorry, Brooke, I couldn't really hear that.
Yeah, I don't think that there are any enforcement or litigation issues per se that are pending. However, if we wanted to meet with council on other issues, I think we might need to amend the motion a little bit.
I'm fine to accept Brooke's friendly amendment to strike the enforcement impending and probable legal actions. As I said, I just read the catch-all without
Okay,
looking back to the
Okay.
executive session folder.
okay, and Kirsten, I assume you're fine with that?
Yes,
Okay. All right, let's vote. All those in favor of the amended motion, please say aye. Aye?
I,
I didn't catch Brooke.
Aye.
Thank you. That is unanimous. We will go into executive session and report back to this meeting when we are through. See you on the other side.
You're back, Catherine.
We are back from executive session. No, we're not quite. Brooke's not with us yet. Let's let Brooke get back from upstairs. So we don't really have anything to report out. We discussed how to proceed with some tier 1A response formatting, and when to get some legal input on a draft format. So that's all we had, and all that's left is adjourning.
I'll move to adjourn.
Thank you, Alex. Kirsten?
Sorry,
can you
I'll second.
unmute yourself? Thank you.
Yeah.
I assume that's what you said, but okay, any further discussion? And let me just ask, Annette, since you waited, do you have any comment before we vote to adjourn?
Thanks for asking. I don't have anything else. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's vote. All those in favor of adjournment, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
That is unanimous. We are adjourned. Thank you for being with us.